Welcome to the University of Oxford's Museum of Natural History on this beautiful sunny day here in Oxford. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that one day I would stand up in front of a room full of people here in the room and all of you online to talk about body-focused repetitive behaviours. It's a momentous day for me, and I'm sure a momentous day for many other people in the room as well. And in the room today, we have several different groups of people. We have some people who have been studying and treating people with body-focused repetitive disorders for many years, decades even. We have other people, scientists, some of my colleagues, and other people who've come from near and far, for whom body-focused repetitive behaviours was a new thing, perhaps have only started hearing about these disorders in the last year or two. And we have people who both live with body-focused repetitive disorders, BFRBs, and their loved ones. And I want to extend a massive welcome to all of you, but particularly those for whom there may be some people in the room who've never been knowingly in a room with other people with BFRBs before. And that's a huge deal for you. And I know it's a huge deal for you because it's really only 18 months since I did the same myself. Around about 18 months ago, I met up with Caroline for the first time, just a few footsteps from here in a coffee shop, and was able to have my very first conversation with somebody else who experienced uncontrollable urges to pick and pull and bite, well, in our case, pull our hair. And that was a momentous occasion for me, for lots of reasons, but actually for two big reasons. So the first is that Caroline then went on to introduce me to Bridget and the rest of the BFRB UK and Ireland team. And together we've put on this event today. So it's been an amazing collaboration. It's just the beginning of an amazing collaboration with an amazing group of people. And I'll be eternally grateful for that introduction. And the other reason it was momentous, because I can distinctly remember Caroline saying, "It would be so good if we could hold a research symposium." So here we all are. So thank you to Caroline. And without any more ado, I'm going to say a whole bunch of thank yous. So today has been made possible by a group of us here at the University of Oxford and the fantastic group at BFRB UK and Ireland. And all of us have been held together by Hannah, who you all have had many emails from. Hannah has been absolutely amazing. Continues to be amazing. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you for everything. We're here because we've been able to hire this incredible building because of a grant that the Oxford team were able to get from the John Fell OUP Research Fund, and from bits and pieces of donations from other institutions here in Oxford, the Wellcome Centre for Integrative Neuroimaging and our NIHR Biomedical Research Centre, and of course to everybody who donates to BFRB UK and Ireland. We also have fantastic sponsors here today. They are either in the room or they're busy setting up in the Woodward room. So make sure you go and chat with Hair Solves and Habit Aware and BFRB Changemakers through the breaks today. As I started to turn my attention to being interested in researching BFRBs, I immediately realised there's a problem. And the problem is, how do we reach our potential research participants when so many people with BFRBs are hidden away? I didn't talk to anybody about mine for 40 years, and I don't think I'm alone in that. People with BFRBs don't tend to be flocking to their doctors asking for help, and they don't tend to be talking openly about it. So how are we going to reach research participants? So I realised that any aspirations that I had to develop research programmes for BFRBs needed to be done alongside a major campaign of raising awareness. And it's for that reason that today we have not one, not two, but 3 film crews around us. And I'm just going to introduce you. So one of the film crews is purely recording the talks for posterity. Another is Alistair Fee from the BBC, who's sitting at the back with a white shirt. Give us a wave, Alistair, and his camera assistant here. If some of you might have seen the piece that Alistair created for us and was on the local news here a couple of weeks ago, which was absolutely brilliant, raised loads of awareness, drove loads of traffic to the charity and to me, and so we massively appreciate that. And Alistair is keen to talk to anybody who might be interested in sharing their story, perhaps as part of a longer form documentary. So don't be afraid of him. He's very, very easy to talk to. He gets it with BFRBs, and do go and have a chat with him today. The other group that we have, we're very lucky to have with us today, are the National Health Service. And the mental health is Andre Tomlin, who's sitting very near Alistair with the yellow shirt at the back. The National Health Service and the mental health in particular is all about raising awareness, and particularly raising evidence-based awareness of mental health conditions. So Andre and Louise, who's with him today, have some short interviews lined up with some of the speakers, but they're also interested, if anybody else wants to tell some of their story, also seek out Andre and Louise, and they'll be very happy to hear some of your story. Now, I'm very aware that for some of you, the idea of being filmed might be filling you with absolute horror. So that's why we have different coloured lanyards. And so the green lanyards mean that you're happy to be filmed. The red lanyards mean that you're not happy to be filmed. And all of the camera crews know to respect the colour of your lanyard and won't go anywhere near you, and will edit you out of anything that you appear on if you're wearing a red lanyard. Oh, I forgot Andre's picture. All right. So one of the things that happens when you start to raise awareness, what I've learned in the last year since I've started to raise awareness through using my own experience, is that a lot of people get in touch. A lot of people get in touch and want to share their stories too. And I thought I'd start the day just by sort of making the point really that these stories are hugely variable. I have had emails and letters from people who are teenagers. I've had handwritten letters from people in their 80s wanting to share their experience of living with BFRBs. I have as many, or probably nearly as many males as females in my inbox. There are a whole range of experiences. Some people talk about very specific childhood traumas that they associate with the onset of their BFRB. But just as often people are saying, in a perfectly happy childhood, BFRBs arrived out of the clear blue sky. We have some people for whom it's not much more than a minor irritation, and we have others for whom there's a massive impact in people's well-being and their lives. A huge range of experience of living with BFRBs. And some of the things that come up time and time again, the themes, this is not a scientific thematic analysis for the scientists in the room, the themes that I see over and over again are people saying, I thought it was only me, my family doesn't understand, I tried going to my doctor and they couldn't help me, they didn't know how to help, they didn't understand, and I live with a huge amount of stigma and shame. And I thought it might be useful to just give some words to the stigma that people with BFRBs live with. These are different groups of individuals on the left. On the top, we've got doctors. In the middle, we've got hair and beauty professionals. This is the horror of going to the hairdresser when you have a BFRB. And on the bottom, I've got my own fraternity of scientists. So they've all never heard of it. These are all things that I've literally heard with my own ears, by the way. Not a proper condition. I've never seen a patient. It's probably all just attention seeking. It's not a hair problem. It's disgusting. Isn't it just a form of OCD, or isn't it just a type of self-harm, or isn't it just a nervous habit? So sweep it under the carpet of some other disorder, and you'll never get funding for this. Nobody's going to be interested. So as a person who lives with a BFRB, all you hear really from these various fraternities of people is, why don't you just stop? Why don't you just stop? And unfortunately, given that that's the level of understanding in the general public, that's also the message that you get from your loved ones, your friends and your family. All that they have to say to you is, why don't you just stop? So you're left with just one question. Why can't I just stop? I can see lots of nodding. Everybody knows that feeling. I think part of the reason why we find it so hard to stop is because picking and pulling and biting is normal primate behaviour. All primates pick and pull and bite at themselves, and they do it for a variety of reasons. They do it partly because they are cleaning themselves. It's hygienic, it's parasite removal. That's a function of our immune systems. They do it for social bonding. They do it to form and maintain social bonds with each other. And they also do it to calm themselves down and to regulate their own emotions. They do it to each other and they do it to themselves. This is normal primate behavior. Interestingly, when primates are in distress, they overgroom. And chimpanzees who are, for example, in captivity or in overcrowded conditions. Captivity and overcrowded position. Can any of us think of times when we might have felt captive in an overcrowded place? Well, that's what happens to primates when you put them in captivity and overcrowding conditions. And I think it's really interesting how different the narratives are around these two populations of primates. When we see hair pulling, skin picking and nail biting in humans, we hear the human is broken. We need to fix the human. When we see exactly the same behavior in a different primate, the narrative is the animal is in distress. We need to fix its environment. And that, I think, is partly because of this massive frontal lobe that we have. We evolved these huge, great big frontal lobes which allow us to do incredible things. Human beings do incredible things because we have this part of the brain that it allows us to plan and make conscious decisions and to abstract and all sorts of amazing things. But unfortunately, this bit of the brain also is a bit arrogant. It tends to think it's in control of everything that we do. And as you can see, the pink bit of the brain, the bit that's not the prefrontal cortex, is much bigger. And a huge amount of our behavior is driven by processes and systems and functions that operate in this bit of the brain, and they don't necessarily check in with our frontal lobes before making a decision to act. This book I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in understanding the complexity of human behavior. It's been probably my book of the year. Behave by Robert Sapolsky, The Biology of Humans at Their Best and Worst. He tells us a few really important things. First of all, behavior is really complicated, and we as humans tend to oversimplify it. We tend to look through specific lenses and think that we understand something because that's what our expertise is in. As somebody who spent my life doing neuroimaging, I have a tendency to think, where in the brain is that happening? Which bit of the brain is doing that? But that doesn't allow me to think laterally about the neurotransmitters and the hormones and the evolution that got us there, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's so much more to it, and we tend to become experts in one thing and miss out on the rest. So human behavior is beautifully complicated, and if we want to understand something as complicated as human behavior, we have to embrace the complexity that's there. So I've had to go at mapping out what I think the areas of science are that we need to explore if we want to understand BFRBs. This is just where I've got to so far after 18 months of learning and reading and talking and having some incredible conversations with some incredible people, some of whom you're going to hear speaking today. So first of all, we obviously need to know the who, the what, the why, the when, the how. And we actually know a fair bit about this box. We have a fair idea from the research that's already been before about who is more likely to develop BFRBs, what other comorbidities they might have, who's likely to be seeking treatment, etc. We know some stuff in this box, and there's more we should know, there's more we can do, but we're not too bad in this box. As I've already said, I think that understanding or studying picking and pulling and biting behaviour in animals, and I don't even just mean primates, by the way, because lots of animals have bodily repetitive behaviours associated with this stress. Dogs get kennel nose, cats pull out their fur and their whiskers, chickens pull out their feathers. They are signs of distress in animals. I think we need to think carefully about those brain systems that are involved. So what is it that makes what's going on when a human being makes a decision to take an action? Because it's complicated. We're going to hear a bit more about that, but we need to embrace the complexity of what exactly is involved in that action. We need to think beyond the brain. So the nervous system doesn't only exist in our brains. And one of the things that's really blown my mind in the last year is understanding the connection between our brains and our skin. There are incredible links between particularly our emotion system and our skin and our hair. And if you haven't thought about this before, you'll be going, what? What's she talking about? Until I say, your skin demonstrate your emotions without ever checking in on your frontal lobe, like when you blush, or how your hair stands on end if you're angry or afraid, or all of the ways in which we feel tingles in our skin in response to emotions that we're feeling. Well, that's because there's intimate connections between our limbic system and the innervation of our skin, and we don't understand that well enough. I think it's important. Another aspect of the phenomenology that you'll hear more about in a while is that many people with BFRBs describe experiencing a trance-like state. A trance-like state where we kind of get stuck. We get stuck in our picking or pulling or biting behaviour, and it's only when we emerge from the trance that we realise what we've done. Well, that trance-like state is an altered state of consciousness. And altered states of consciousness are interesting too. And again, we're going to hear more about this later, but what if the altered state of consciousness is actually what we're seeking when we're picking and pulling, biting? What if it's that dissociation that is actually the thing we're addicted to? I don't know, it's just an idea. I don't think we can properly understand the impact of living with BFRBs unless we also embrace the human condition beyond the individual. We are individuals that live in society. Our identity and our culture is so wrapped up in our skin and our hair and our nails. Our skin and our hair and our nails are our peacock feathers, which is why you see peacock feathers all over the branding today. If we can't express our identity through our hair and we dismiss this. As scientists, as I stand up here as an Oxford scientist talking about hair and skin and nails, we dismiss this. It shouldn't be important, it shouldn't matter. But we know in our souls that it does matter. And if we want to understand the impact of living with these disorders, we need to embrace this area of science as well, social sciences as well. And that just leads me nicely on to the last bit of the last segment, which is about the shame and stigma that I've already highlighted. And again, and I think it's entirely possible that that shame that we experience, partly caused by the stigma, actually keeps our brain in that state of distress, which might be the thing that's maintaining the behaviour in the first place. So, all important things to do. And hopefully that helps you understand why today's programme looks so full and so varied and so mind-blowing. So we're going to have a go at covering a lot of this ground today. As I've said, so many of the thoughts that I just shared with you have come from amazing conversations that I've had with many of the speakers today. I recognise that this might all be quite a lot to take on. If you find yourself zoning out, don't worry, just take a break and come back when you're ready. We've got lots of breaks, so make sure that you take advantage of the breaks. I hope that people will find each other and connect and create new conversations and collaborations, etc. I also hope that as many of you as possible will be able to stay at the end of the talks today, when we'll be opening up. We'll do a complete takeover of the museum. The museum shuts to the public at 5 o'clock, and from 6 till 8 today we have drinks. This space is an amazing space to be in. It's even more amazing when all of the public have gone home and we have it to ourselves and it starts to go dark. So please stay if you can. Make sure that you do go and say hi and chat to the sponsors, Hair Solved, Habit Aware, BFRB Changemakers. These are both represented by Anila Adnani, who's hopefully around. I can't see her. There she is. We will have charity stalls setting up at some point as well. And so, again, the stalls and the posters are all in the Woodward room. If you haven't found that yet, you have to walk through the cafe to the other side, and that's where I think we'll hang out with our teas and coffees. It's another beautiful space, so please make sure you do go over there and check it all out. All that remains for me to say is thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me that you're all here. I'm going to get emotional. It means the world to me that you're all here to talk about BFRBs today. We asked you when you registered what you would like to know. And thank you to all of those who put in a few words about what they'd most like to know. You won't be surprised to see that when I put those things into a word cloud, what most people want to know: how do we support people? How do we find treatments? And I hope that you'll hear some of that today, and I hope that what we talk about today will lead us to being even better at providing the support and treatment that people so desperately need. Finally, at some point, I don't know whether yet, but at some point you will be given feedback forms. Feedback is always important when you're organising a conference. As you know, this is the first time we're doing this, so it's super helpful for us to know what works, what doesn't work, what you like, what you don't like. But even more importantly, BFRB UK and Ireland completely depend on donations and grants, and their ability to get grants is greatly improved if we have evidence that what we're doing makes a difference. So please do give us the feedback, either on the paper form or online. Thank you very much.